Welcome back to the Built by Me podcast. Today's guest is Danny Kerr, co-founder of Breakthrough Academy and host of Contractor Evolution. Danny's helped hundreds of trade businesses scale, and he's here to talk about what most contractors get wrong about hiring, how to attract A players in a competitive market, and why your online reputation isn't just for customers anymore. Whether you're building your first team or you're trying to level up your leadership, this episode has so many great nuggets. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the Built by Me podcast. I'm your host, Taina. I'm a solo today as Mo couldn't join us, but I'm super excited for today's guest, Danny Kerr, co-founder of Breakthrough Academy. Danny, I'll let you introduce yourself, what you do, how your day was.
My day was good. You're my first major meeting of the day. So it's been prepping, getting ready for a bunch of podcasts that we're doing on our show coming up in September. So just been doing that. But yeah, I am, like I said, co-founder of BTA, Breakthrough, and we've been for 10 years working on systemizing contracting businesses and to help them grow and sustain what they're up to. And a lot of it's around profitability, sustainability of good people and having good teams and having an actual process around the company so that the owner's not managing all things at all times, right? They've got an actual business that can run with or without them and survive another guest when I interviewed a long time ago called the bus test. So like how many people have to get hit by a bus before your business collapses? survive the ability for the owner to do the thing.
I love that. Okay. And that's most entrepreneurs' goals, right? Is to get it so that the business can run without them so that they're no longer working 24/7. It can just be a lot more hands-off. Can you tell me more about your podcast, The Contractors Evolution? Is that what it's called?
Similar to you guys, and I think similar to a lot of brands, there's so much that happens inside a business that, our business that doesn't get talked about. And you can put out ads all you want and you can go and do all kinds of social media marketing. And I think all of those things are valid, but I think having a voice at the table for the industry is important. And we're very content related to what we do. And I think a lot of our contractors are looking for solutions, and it's a great way to just get a relationship started early on, right? And have some really interesting conversations. I find for me anyways, like I learn through conversation almost more than anything. So it's been really neat, even for me, just to interview authors and different people that are doing really cool things in our space. And I'm picking up a lot just from it selfishly for myself. So.
Yeah. It's always cool when you can get a lot of things from yourself, and then it's also nice for your listeners. They get a lot of good nuggets and something that you can listen to while you're on the job, while you're on your way home, whenever you can.
Yeah, I am an entrepreneur, and I find there's just things, questions, ideas, problems that I have that I'm like, I'm pretty sure our entire industry is thinking about this right now. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll do a little background. So you've helped a lot of trades businesses scale. What do you see that contractors are getting right and wrong, specifically about hiring?
I honestly don't think they give it the effort and money and attention it's due, right? It's so interesting. So when you listen to our assessment team and the conversations they have, there's always a question around like, what is the biggest barrier to growth for you? And you'd think it's sales and marketing. And it's not that doesn't come up. It does come up, but it's not actually as often as we need good people. If we could just have good people, we could scale to whatever we want. And then you look at it and you're just like, okay, so how many dollars and hours a week are you putting into recruitment? And it's really low. Like you're looking at their Google Ads budget, and when we go through their budgeting, and it's like, okay, you put $30,000 to $100,000 a year into your Google Ads to generate workflow or work for you, and you got like $5,000 allocated to recruiting ads, and you're recruiting for 2 or 3 months of the year, and other than that, you're not. And it's like, if this is the biggest challenge to growth, why is this not the biggest focus within your organization? And there's a disconnect there.
That's definitely true. I feel like even though it is such an important part, I think that all the other parts, sales and marketing, get more attention because that's more outwardly facing, right? You're not necessarily thinking, oh, let me invest into getting better people. It's like, let me try to get more clients and try to make more money that way,
Totally. It's exactly that. If I put money into getting more money, this makes sense to my brain. But if I'm putting more money into getting things that cost me money, it's just, I'm a little more apprehensive around it. But if you look at the opportunity cost, a lot of it lies in the hours and time of jobs that don't get produced because you didn't have the capacity, right? So I won't do the math with you on the podcast today, but you can calculate how many hours one person can produce in a week, and say for every week we don't have that one, just even technician producing in the field, how much does that cost us as a business? And it's massive.
Yeah. So you say what contractors are getting wrong is not spending or not investing in enough, whether that's time or money or energy on hiring and putting that towards something else.
Yeah, and skill development, right? Like,
Mm.
how many contractors have been to a sales and marketing class or taken time to understand their sales and marketing better? But and I asked that, and half the room's hands go up. And how many people have taken like a recruiting class? And there's like 2 out of 100, right? And they're like, yeah,
Right.
it's like, right. We're not actually learning how to do this. We're just complaining about it. So
Yeah. So most entrepreneurs don't necessarily get into, or maybe I don't know, but don't necessarily get into the business because they are so passionate about hiring or passionate about getting new people. What are some things that you would tell them to make it a little bit easier? Because if they haven't taken that recruitment class, or
a lot of it relates to the pain of the people they've been through, right? Or have rotated in their company. And you start
mm,
to realize like where the biggest pain lies often is in the people. And then
mm,
you also look at an organization and you say, okay, you do HVAC or you do roofing or you do construction, and your brand is very important. I get it. But what lies behind that brand, the first line of interaction with your entire organization is your people. So
mm,
everything that you are as a company is based on your people and the caliber
yeah,
thereof. And if you want to grow a business, if you want to have a really solid brand with a good, reliable, like your reoccurring revenue, and you can have freedom from like it all starts with your people. Like that is the root issue of or opportunity of the whole thing. I think as businesses mature, they start to see that and understand that more, but they just don't know where to start as far as like how do we approach this problem in a in a logical way.
that's kind of interesting. It's almost like hiring is marketing because your people and your customer services are marketing your brand. And if they're not sharing your values the same way as you would, then you're no longer presenting your brand the way that you want to be, I guess. Um, what was your first big hiring mistake when you first starting out, and what did it teach you?
I remember, so I was 18 years old when I started my first business. It was in painting. But
Mm,
I remember, and I was trained how to recruit, but I obviously had no idea what I was doing yet. It took time to learn. I just remember looking across the table from me at applicants and being like, could I have a beer with this guy? It was kind of like the litmus test that I was
right.
using. And maybe like from a a relational standpoint, there was some pros and cons to that, but that was it, right? That was the extent of my interview. And yes, I asked them questions, and yes, they answered questions, but I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know what I
Right.
didn't know. And I found, especially after my first year of operating with my team, I was like, oh, now I'm starting to see the flaws, right? When you hire
Yeah.
somebody to manage your crews, like leadership matters, tenacity
Mhm.
matters, introspection matters, not just are you a cool dude, right? When you're
Right.
hiring someone to paint for you or a technician, it's like you have to like know and like hard work. You have to be okay with working out in August and like the hot sun. You have to be,
Mhm.
and there's just things that you see in people who start to quit on you or start to flake out or problems, and you're like, right, like big things I learned is like I don't want actually a really experienced technician. Some of the worst people
Okay.
I've ever hired had 10, 15 years of painting experience,
Why
and
is that?
because they're stuck in their way,
Mm,
because they've got their own way of doing things, and often it's sloppy and it's not in the best interest of the organization.
mhm.
We ran the piece rate systems, so they were based on their ability to hit budgets, and there was people that I hired that were all about it and they were stoked to do piece rate, but they did it in the sloppiest way possible, which caused me tons of quality issues and tons of customer service
Wow.
issues. and
Mhm.
and I realized like, yeah, I need to, it is worth the effort to hire people with some to minimal experience and take the time to train them internally, especially for
Yeah.
a role like painting. That is a fairly simple craft or trade for exterior specifically. And I'm sure there's painters are gonna be like, "What are you, nuts?" Like, I get it. There is specific parts of painting that is ridiculous, but for exterior residential repaints on homes,
Mhm.
it was a process that was worth investing in me to hire a more less experienced person, often from a farmers or athletes or people with other attributes in life that have really driven them,
Yeah.
that I can teach the craft of painting to.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It kind of brings me to like, what's your take on character versus skill when it comes to hiring? Because you also mentioned you can't just go based off of would I have a beer with this person, but you don't necessarily need to just go off of does this person have 10 years experience in this?
So two things. So character is always the first and foremost because you can't
Mhm.
change character. If somebody's lazy, you can't make them not lazy. If somebody stresses out
Yep.
easily, you can't make them stress out not easily. If somebody like there's things you could never train in somebody. And I actually tested this once. So I remember, so I also used to run franchises in the painting industry, and
Yeah.
there was one trait that mattered so much, which was fundamental: the ability to handle stress in pursuit of a goal. And this is true for entrepreneurs in general. I'm hiring people to run small franchises. Anybody listening that's an entrepreneur, just so you know, like one of the biggest indicators of success or failure is your ability to handle stress in pursuit of a goal, which I'm sure you all understand why.
Write that down.
And I remember one year I was struggling to fill my franchise turfs. And I was like, you know what, there's a couple people that I like them. They've got good leadership. They're organized. They're, you know, all these things. They're actually quite driven. And in the areas where I noticed their hardest times in life, they often fold or they fight or flight in the situation. But I'm like, I think I could change that. I think I could do that. I could coach that out of them. And so I took on a few, and all but one failed on me.
Wow.
And the only one that succeeded was the person who actually decided for themselves they were going to change who they were. And that was like, you know, that was their own personal endeavor. I had no control over that. No amount of coaching or development work that I did made that change. It was their own personal decision. Every other person repeated the same pattern they repeated their entire life, which was when the going gets tough, they're out of the room, right? So suddenly they're not picking up their phone. Suddenly, you know, and I'm picking up their mess. So personality matters first and foremost all day long. Now, I will say skill has a place. It's not that you just don't interview for skill anymore, but you as an owner have to decide to what level and degree do I want to invest in my training and onboarding program. And that basically, that robustness of your training and onboarding program is the direct level of like skill required for that role. So if you have a super robust training onboarding process, you could hire people that have little to no skill in that role.
Yeah, because they'll learn.
They're going to learn, and you've got a process built to do that. We used to do something called hand in the can. So it was like an intensive 1 to 2 week training process for student painters to learn how to paint a house. Right. And so I could hire somebody that didn't know anything about painting, and within 2 weeks, get them at least to the basics. And then we had standard processes to keep up with them throughout the summer.
Yeah.
Now, if I didn't have that, I might have to hire someone with at least 1 or 2 years of experience. Right.
Yeah.
If I've got somebody coming into sales, I know a lot of owners are often like trying to replace themselves with a salesperson. If you're going to hire somebody with little to no experience, you better have a pretty robust sales process, pretty well thought through. And every part of the process should be, you know, not only scripted, but like, this is what best practices look like, and then take them through that training.
Yeah.
If you don't, you might need somebody who obviously understands sales in your marketplace. I talk to roofers all the time, and they're, you know, frustrated with their sales reps because in roofing, I mean, every industry has got its own flavor, but in roofing specifically, I find seasoned roofing sales people are a little jaded. They're a little rough. And so it's hard to get that salesperson to do a good job for your org because they've been with other ones where it's all about hard sales, or it's all about cutthroat processes, and so I'm like, look, you're much better off. Yeah, there's some drama. Like you are much better off building a robust sales training program for your people, and then go bring some people from outside the industry that aren't so jaded, right?
Yeah.
And you'll have a much easier job bringing them in because they're also not being vetted or not being headhunted by 7 other roofing companies.
Yeah, it's also, there's a lot of skills that are transferable. You don't need to necessarily have sold in this specific industry, but you can learn things about the industry while you're on the job. While you mentioned if you have processes in place for your onboarding, you can learn that, but you have those skills that are transferable from other things.
Yeah, and the reality of the industry is there's more demand than there is people. So you do have to realize as an entrepreneur, I need to reach outside of my industry if I want to be able to have a sustainable sustainable recruiting funnel. You can try and grab from only people within the industry, but that's a limited pool. That is, you know, everyone's holding on to their good people, right? So
you mentioned looking into maybe some other people from other industries for like sales, for roofing, for example. What are some other effective ways that people can stand out as an employer?
There's lots of things you can do. Let's talk about 2 things first. We can talk a bit about the brand. So your business brand, and if you've ever done a branding exercise, needs to consider not just your ideal customer, but your ideal candidates, like the ideal people that want to work for you. Yes. And so when people see your brand online, when they see your social media posts, when they see kind of your website, when they see the charity event that you did, are you considering the types of people that you want to have come work for you, or are you just considering your ideal customer? And it's really neat to build a brand where it's encompassing both. And the thing that both of them should have in common is the core values, right? It's like you should be working with customers, vendors, and employees that all share a common set of core values. Yeah. But it also shapes a little bit of the content you might even put out. Like if I'm going to on my Instagram post a bunch of stuff? Am I just going to post the projects we've done, or am I going to post all about the people that work on those projects?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that for a customer, even that's an even more intriguing post than just the project. They want to know about your people anyways.
Of course.
And so people looking to work for you get to see that flavor and get to see what you guys are up to and kind of pull the curtain back and what's happening behind the scenes in the operations with the humans doing the things. So branding matters. And I think in this marketplace more than ever, people want to feel like they're a part of something. They want to feel like they're aligned with the organization they work for. They don't just want a transactional relationship where they trade money for time. And I would highly recommend against it, even as an owner. It's such a hard thing to manage when people are just there for a paycheck.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say to stand out is actually a lot about what I call like active marketing tactics versus passive tactics. So it's actually taking the reins. If you just post on LinkedIn or Indeed or ZipRecruiter and you're just waiting for people to come to you, it's not that it doesn't work. It can. It's just, you're subject to the marketplace. It's a very risky thing to do. So you have to think about what are the things that I can go do to reach out to those types of people. And so we teach, I always talk about this in my webinars, but I'm like, first and foremost, I'll ask you, where's the best source of high quality applicants that you could possibly get? Where do the best people come that work with you guys? Where do they come from? What source do you think?
Well, we have a recruitment team, so probably LinkedIn, probably online.
I'll tell you the answer is it's your team's network.
Oh yeah.
Referrals. Like minds know like minds, right? And so it's an obvious one that people sometimes even miss on, but I'm like, hey, look, you can go and ask your team all day long. Can you find us a good painter? Can you find us a good sales? We've got an opening. Let us know. But it only goes so far. And so I always recommend, hey, let's go and get your team of 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever, and bring them out on a Thursday into the office, pizza and beer, or pizza and pop, whatever you want to do. And let's spend 2 hours with them going over their network. And what you want to do is build an ideal profile of who you're looking for, pre-build your job ads. So they're all laid out and ready to go with links ready to go. And you're going to have your team message 100 to 200 people each. And they're not saying, do you want a job? They're just saying, do you know anyone? So it's, hey, so-and-so, our company XYZ is currently looking for a person in XYZ role. Curious if you might know anybody who'd be a good fit. Please see link below. P.S. We're offering $1,000 hiring bonus. Happy to share that with you if you did know anyone. And so the whole team is helping just spread the word rather than trying to directly find that one friend that they think could be available or not. And that's a lot easier to send it to people that could potentially be a good fit, but also just people they have a good relationship with and people that are generally just good connectors. And if you have a team of 10 that send out 100 messages each through their network, that's 1,000 direct messages that go out in the course of a couple hours. And that kind of stuff is more active because you're reaching out to your marketplace versus just waiting for it to come in, right?
I also, something else that you mentioned was that $1,000 hiring bonus. Happy to share that with you. It's also an incentive as well. Because like not only like good people know good people. And if you're reaching out to your workers that you already like, you already know are hard workers, they're already doing what they're supposed to be doing. Their network probably is the same. But also like if you have incentive for them as well, they know that if they bring someone on that isn't great for the job, they're going to be picking up their slack. But also like it's not going to look good on them as well. So it's like having that little bit of incentive on top of having kind of just like the pride of bringing someone in that was good, I think is really important as well.
And it's valuable. Like, again, to calculate the opportunity cost of one technician not producing for 1 week will cost you far more than $1,000, I guarantee you. And so just and realizing that and saying it's totally worth paying $1,000 for somebody onboarded into our team. It could be worth more, actually. It could be worth a lot more.
You mentioned something at the beginning about branding and posting not just the job that you're doing, but who did the job, and posting more about the team and the culture. I think that's really important, especially in this day and age. A lot of people on social media want to connect with other people. They want to connect with not the brand, but who is part of the brand, and bringing them into the behind the scenes, like you mentioned. Not necessarily being like, we pay this much and we do this, but it's like if you have a team day, if you guys are doing like a team retreat, if you guys had a team culture or anything that you're doing, you can still post about this. You can still let the public know, both on the customer side and also for when you are hiring, so that people already know that you typically post things like this, not just when you're hiring. All of a sudden, you guys are super close and everyone is so cool and loves working there. It's like we've been seeing that you've consistently posted about your team and everyone seems very comfortable with each other. And it's really obvious when companies with companies where people actually like each other and like working there. It's really obvious. You'll see it in their social media. You'll see it in their posts.
I'll say this too. So you can go and get B and C level candidates because they just need a job. But if
Mm-hmm.
you want to hire the top people in your industry, like the A's, you need to have a lot more to offer than just a paycheck. And
Yeah.
so that old adage or whatever, I hear it all the time, maybe it's because I'm in this industry, but like they will interview you just as much as you're going to interview them. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they're going to interview you more.
Yeah.
And so before you even get to that first meeting, they've already done their research. And so what are they finding online about you? And what are they reading
Yeah.
about you? And what are their preconceived notions before they've even had a chance to have a conversation with you? And I'll say, there was a point in my career where I was head of HR for Western Canada for a company called College Pro Painters. I was recruiting franchisees, middle management, and painters in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a chance to be, basically getting about 100 resumes a day into my inbox. And I would go, yeah, it was a lot.
Okay.
It was a lot.
Pre-AI.
Yeah, pre-AI and pre-doing everything on your computer. So I used to print them all out and I would read them.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Not like highlighting.
We killed a lot of trees. Anyways. So I print them all out and I would rate them, right? I would rate them out of 10. And that would, basically give me the priority list of who I should be calling first. And it was amazing to me to see like my top candidates, my 8s, 9s, and 10s out of 10 were usually getting a job within a week. My 7s and 6s usually within about a month, and my 6s, 5s, and below were never getting a job, and they were the ones that were constantly reapplying to me. And I could see the resume every 6 weeks, being like, "Oh, they got fired again somewhere. Looks okay." So it was just curious to me, and I realized I was like, our top people. Not only do we have to be, it's like speed to lead in sales, but it's like we need to be quick too. But they've already likely read through my stuff before they've even applied to me. And some of these top people too, I get, sometimes they'll send in their resume and they'll say things like, "Hey, I read your ad. I just wanted to let you know that really spoke to me. I'm super stoked to talk to you," because my ads were all about them, speaking directly to that type of person. I wasn't just saying project manager needed, make company wage, drive company truck. Like I spoke to my specific ideal candidate. I always give this
Can you
example.
elaborate on that?
Yeah, like I was giving this example of my project manager who was an athlete. And I sat down with him to get his language. I was like, "Why do you work for me? What do you love about this? What do you hate about this? What gets you up in the morning? Why do you stick around with me?" Like all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like, "Man, I love that you're my coach more than my boss. I would hold them accountable to their goals and drive them. I love that you give me freedom and autonomy to drive throughout my week to hit my goals with my crews. So I wouldn't usually like micromanage him all week. I would just leave him to his goals. I gave him his contracts. He knew what he had to get done. We'd check in next Monday." He's like, "I love that I get paid bonuses. It's kind of like I get to go score touchdowns and be able to get actually paid for it." And he's like, "Danny, I used to be the quarterback of the football team in high school. And that same way that we ran the team, that my coach ran things, is how you run this painting company." He's like, "That's what keeps me around." And I realized, like in my ads, I was like, I'm going to switch it up. And I was like, need quarterback to drive our painting crews. Looking for a coach more than a boss. Wish you had freedom and autonomy to drive crews in your own way. Love scoring touchdowns, but wish you actually got paid for them. Boy, do we have a job for you. Right. And I spoke to my ideal candidates. And it was interesting because the top candidates usually were reading my ad and replying not just with their resume, but with a comment around, "Hey, that spoke to
About
me."
that.
I had a different one for farmers. I had like, we had, so I had like, I had a
Segmented
few
different.
ideal candidates, and then I would build out the ad sets for those people. And they were saying, "Hey," and tell me in the interview too, like, "I have options. Like I can pick where I want to work, and I'm here to see if this is the right place for me."
So you mentioned something a little while ago about what they're reading about you. So reviews aren't just for customers anymore, especially in a competitive workplace where you mentioned if they have options, why should they come work for you? Before the interview even happens, trying to get them to apply, or even after the interview, trying to get them to pick you. How can that company's online reputation affect hiring?
I think it's the same as it affects getting your customers. I think it's the
Yeah.
exact same. And again, you can go and get B and C level candidates that probably won't read your reviews. But if you want A's, if you want the top people in your industry, they're going to your website. They're going to your Google reviews. I'll tell you one other thing that's a really smart one. They're going to Glassdoor and they're reading what's going on in there too, right? And so your online reputation is everything. And I've seen this personally. I've seen this. So we've had bad reviews before, and it affected our recruiting in a very tangible way. And so we had to have a very intentional like campaign around like, who are the people that work for us that can give us good reviews? How do we change this up over time? And it shifted. And it's so interesting because as an employer, you can't really tell that it's happening because it's all the people that didn't apply for you. But as soon as you start to fix those reviews and that reputation, the right people suddenly start to come on board.
If a company gets a bad review about their workplace, what do you think they should do? How should they respond?
Never defend or explain. I'll tell you that right now. But invite them into a conversation, right? Thanks for letting us know. We would love to chat with you more to try and resolve the issue.
Yeah.
Right. And keep it that simple, because you don't want to get into a big storm back and
Online.
forth. Everybody gets to read and it becomes a big mess.
Yeah.
So never defend and never try and explain away the situation. Acknowledge what they're saying and invite them into a further conversation. Let's
Yeah.
We would love to reach out to you. Let us know the best way to reach out or connect with our team. Here's the best way to do it. And let's see if we can help you. It's very simple.
Yeah. Also be self-aware. Like if you have 3 different reviews saying very similar things about, let's say it's like disorganized, maybe take that feedback and figure out how you can get more organized in your onboarding process or whatever the pain point is, so that the next people who come in won't have that complaint, but then yes, definitely responding in a way that takes it offline, but then taking that in and just saying, okay, well, is there some truth to this review?
There's always truth to it. There's always truth to it.
Exactly.
People, here's the thing I've learned. So when I ran this painting company, every week I would have issues that we'd had customer complaints on, and they were usually small. Maybe we didn't show up on time, maybe we spilled a can of paint, whatever it was. Those were all micro learning.
Yeah.
Every month we would have a customer that was really upset, and we had to go above and beyond to fix the issue. Again, I'm working with a bunch of student painters. This crazy time. And every quarter I would have somebody who was absolutely god awful to my company and my team, and we probably shouldn't have hired them as a client. No. But in every single one of those scenarios, there is learning that I have. There is something that I need to take as a note. And if I'm just defending and explaining my way through all these customers, I'm just creating more of a wake of chaos long term. There's always themes in all of them. Some of them are outliers, but it's like, as an entrepreneur, one thing you have to own is like, if somebody's saying something about me, there's obviously in their perception of reality, a missed expectation or something that's off. And even if I'm getting that person who, and everyone knows who that person is, that person who's like, I shouldn't have worked with that customer. They're still learning for you in this. There's still things that you could or should do better. And you need to take that introspective view and not the defensive view.
No, that's perfect. Do you think that companies should encourage their current employees, like the A-star players, to leave Glassdoor reviews or to leave reviews for their company?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see why not. And I think it's important to encourage them to be fair.
Yeah.
Not to say, hey, I want you to do this for us. And it's like, no, I want you to write your actual, real, genuine experience. Yeah, it's great. I think those are the great types of reviews. When you go on Glassdoor and you see a bunch of canned responses, what does it tell you? It tells you the company probably put on a campaign to get their whole whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. It's like, if you feel like you would like to, awesome. And if you do, I want you to be honest and real and genuine
and authentic. I think there might be some hesitancy when you're currently working there. I think the reason why I always take Glassdoor reviews with a little bit of grain of salt, because I'm assuming that most people who leave reviews are not the ones who've had an amazing experience, because they typically don't remember to leave reviews. Usually that's how it is with online reviews in general. Usually people who have a really negative review or experience or really great experience are the ones who leave. The outliers leave reviews, right? That's so totally people in the middle are kind of like, maybe if there's something that they don't like and there's something that they do like, they might think that there might be some repercussions while they're currently working there if they talk about the things that they don't like. So they're like, oh, well, I'll just keep it fluffy. I'll just keep it up here. True. Yeah, it's a great place to work.
You're absolutely right about that. Actually, I think about one of the bad reviews we have. You guys can go read our Glassdoor reviews if you want to listening. One of the bad ones we have was on a recruitment process. It took too long. Okay. I think they were in it for 2 or 3 months, and then we didn't accept them in, and it was on us. And I was like, and to that point, we now have a head of HR who's helping us with, and a head of recruitment in our company, because we were realizing like, this is a sore spot for people where you take, especially the professionals we hire for our coaching team, you take them down a 2 or 3 month journey. Like, you better make sure you have a clear result for them quicker than 2 or 3 months.
3 months is long.
Yeah,
it's long, and I'm assuming I'm going to get the job by then. Like, if it's like, how many rounds of interviews though?
This needs to be refined, right? So right now it's probably 6 or 7.
Okay, that's a lot.
And it needs to come down to 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I feel like 3 is like my cap, and then I'm just like, okay, do I have the job? By the 4th time, I'm like, who else am I meeting? Like, I've already met the CEO. Like, what else are we doing at this point? But I do get it when we need a technical one at the end or something like that, where it's like we've had like talking interviews, and then now we need like a technical one or like some sort of like skill. You're on the job or you're doing something. I understand having like 4 for those.
The biggest thing I find is it's the relationship between the recruiter and the hiring manager that needs to be tight. And when that's disjointed a bit, and the hiring manager's busy, or they're in, tends to take a little bit longer of a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I'll give us our own like critical feedback. I think we are too careful, if that makes sense, because we teach recruiting, because we're all about finding the best humans for our organization.
Right.
I think we take too much time, and I think there's things, and I've already identified them with our head lead recruiter, but things that can be cut out. So we're in the process, even right now as we speak, of we preach this stuff. Let's also make sure that we're not only doing it, but we're doing it in an efficient manner. We're not waiting.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I want to do some rapid fire questions, so they can be short answers. I have a few here. What's one red flag that you watch out for in an interview?
So when I interview somebody, I'm not looking for surface level responses. I'm looking for stories. And if I can't get to the specific story that relates to a trade or in a moment in somebody's life, that's usually a red flag for me. So if I'm going to say, what's the most, what's the most stressful time in your life? And they'll say, okay, this one time when I was in university and I had 6 classes, plus I worked a job. Now that would be about it. I'd be like, cool. What was the hardest month? What happened? How were you feeling at that time? What happened next? Did you give up? Why didn't you give up? What happened? And I want to get into the story. And when the story starts to break down, I know I probably got to something that they were hoping I wouldn't really get into the details of, because there's probably more to it. Yeah. I remember one guy, I was looking into tenacity. I was like, what's the hardest work experience you've ever had? And he's like, working up in northern Alberta in minus 40-degree weather with frozen ground, trying to dig into it. I'm like, cool. Wow, that sounds tough. And then next question, how long did it last? What was the hardest moments? And he's like, it lasted about 3 weeks and I quit. And I was like, interesting, right? So now what sounded like a really good example of tenacity is actually something where it's like, in my role, you're going to come and work for me for 3 weeks. You're going to hit some hard times and you're going to give up.
I'm going to leave. Yeah.
Right. So it's the details in the story that I often look for. And if I can't get to those, I know there's probably either something up or it just doesn't exist as the trait that they're hoping it would.
That's a good one. What's the best interview question that you've asked someone?
There's so many. I mean, every trait has its own kind of, I don't know if it's a question more than it's a strategy. I'm looking big picture first and then drilling down with my questions. And so when I'm interviewing somebody, I try and look at them as like a stick person on a white piece of paper. I have no detail and I don't want to assume either. Right. And so it's really important that I start super high level, most stressful moment in your life, hardest work experience, biggest conflict at work. But then I've got 10 other questions that are going to go deeper to find out the specifics of that scenario. And I think it's the strategy of starting high level and coming down into the specifics that matters more than the question itself. Yeah. I don't always know what my next question is going to be. It depends on what the response is and what the right specific question could be to get that to the next level. What is important in questions though, and this is true for sales and any kind of like where you're trying to figure out the human next to you, is that they're all open-ended, right? An open-ended question versus, are you a hard worker? Yes, check. Like that gets you nowhere.
Yeah.
What is your hardest work experience, right? It gets you into
say no.
Yeah.
Are you a hard worker? No. I don't think so.
Yeah, there's questions that I ask a lot, but I find that they're all in service of getting down into the depths, peeling back the onion to get into the core.
That makes sense. So kind of like a funnel approach.
Yeah, correct.
What's the biggest myth about hiring in the trades?
I think that people just think that there's no good people left anymore. People are stupid, lazy, and unmotivated, and it's like, I do. I think
nobody wants to work these days.
Yeah, people are jaded and fair because it's hard to find good people, but there are still hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million people that probably do a really good job in this industry. And there's probably another 1 million that aren't in the industry that we could bring in if we did a good job recruiting. It's just our job to go out there and figure that out. And although it's hard, it doesn't mean it's impossible because they're still physically there. I think about this is in the recession of 2008. I remember I was operating my business and I remember calling my coach and saying, and this was more about work than people, but I was like, man, there's just no work out there. And he's like, Danny, you have to remember, even in the worst recession ever, there's still billions of dollars in transactions flying through the air every single day. And it's your job as an entrepreneur to figure out the angle to grab what you need to run your organization. It's like, so don't tell me there's no work. Tell me that it's harder to find work. And then let's start to think how we can adjust and basically build a strategy to get what we need. And that's true in recruiting right now. We are in a recession of people. There is more demand than there is people to do the labor. And even though the market's a little, soft right now, it's still true, and it will continue to be true because there's more people retiring than there is new people entering the workforce here.
Okay, what's one skill that you can't teach but you wish you could?
I think you can teach most skills as long as they have an intelligence quotient to be able to take it on. But in personality traits, introspection is probably one of the most important ones when you're trying to build something inside of people. And it's the ability to objectively see yourself and others in an objective light and be able to make sound decisions based on that. It's very hard to develop anybody if they don't have introspection, if they're like offended when you give them feedback, or if in situations when things go wrong, they don't see their faults in it or the other person's faults equally and understand truly what actually happened. So introspection is very important, especially if you're going to bring people in that you're going to go now build a bunch of skill development with them.
That's a good one. What does a 5-star employee actually look like?
I have actual access on this, but it's all about something called skill and commitment, or skill and will. Mm-hmm. So 5-star employees have the skill to do the job and the commitment or confidence to execute on it. And what that means is when you first start with somebody, they might have high level of like commitment to you, and they're like, I'll do whatever it takes, but their skill is low, right? And so often in the beginning of a relationship with an employee, you're spending the first few weeks to months building their skill up so they know how to do their job. Mm-hmm. Now, in the process of doing that, their confidence goes down, or commitment let's just call it confidence. Their confidence goes down because they're so used to coming to you for the answer. And so they're so used to like, well, my boss just tells me what to do and I do it and I'm safe, right? Yeah. And so you have to, over time, start to build their confidence up by basically they'll come to you with questions and not answering the question anymore, but asking them back, hey, what's the best way to like paint this soffit? What's the best way to, close a job? What's the best way to whatever, set up a crew before before the morning's over. Mm-hmm. And instead of like answering the question, say, what do you think is the best way? What did you learn last month? And then validating their responses. And you're building in that confidence in themselves that they actually do have the answer without you. And slowly over time, getting that skill up and the confidence for them to answer that themselves to create a more independent, critical thinking human. If you never train skill, people will crash and burn. And if you never let go of that and start giving them more independence to find their own answers, you're always going to create people that won't turn on their critical thinking side of their brain. Yeah, and it's having somebody that has both that you can really drive with, because now you can release the oversight and let them go drive that part of the organization.
Yeah. And having them be independent from you. So and then also when you're training up the skill part of it and building up their confidence, you're also getting to think, or maybe not even just like how you would think, but in the best interest of the business. So in that way, you don't have to worry about the decisions that they're making.
Exactly. And we've all experienced this where we don't spend enough time doing this. We maybe show somebody exactly how to do something. We then leave them alone. They do it exactly not right. And then we don't trust their decision-making anymore. And then we go right back into oversight and
now you're micromanaging.
Totally. And then their confidence moves down as a result. And then they become super dependent on you. And then you're like, this is why am I even hiring you? And it's actually most of the time your fault as a leader, because you didn't lead them effectively to find that confidence and skill requirement to get to that place of independence.
The truth hurts. Okay, finish the sentence. A business is only as strong as
its people. We're talking about it all the time. It's strong as people.
Basically, that's the whole episode.
Well, and I think we all get it, but every trade has a thing that it does, but it's defined by its people. And that will remain true until we finally have robots that take the whole thing over. But for the next 10, 20 years, that's the deal. This is another episode. We can get into that later. But we are defined by our people. And the ability to have good systems, good profit, good customer service, good quality ratings, good brand that's recognized, it comes down to our people and how aligned they are to the overall vision and mission of the company, how skilled they are at their role, how supported they feel in what they're doing, and how streamlined the overall workflow process is. All comes down to people committing to those things and being a part of it with you.
We're wrapping up here. I just have a few closing questions for you. More so about the future, but also what's some advice that you would give to young trades entrepreneurs who are struggling to build a team right now in this day and age?
We talked about it earlier. It's just the concept of active marketing versus passive marketing. So, like,
Yeah.
if you're going to go and start a recruiting process around this, get versed in some ways to generate your own applications. So, we use the combination of a recruiter, which you guys have too. So, we have somebody out there actively hitting LinkedIn actually up pretty hard. We have our networking strategy with our team. We're also holding all the resumes that have ever come in with scores on them and notes on them. And so, if you have an ATS system, applicant tracking system, or you just want to use Dropbox or Google Drive, you should be holding every single resume that's ever applied for you. And you should be nurturing those people over time, whether you're sending them updates on the company and what's going on. It allows you every year, or maybe even twice a year, to send them a very similar message that we talked about in that networking thing, where it's like, hey, so-and-so, I know you applied last year. Just wanted to let you know our company XYZ is currently looking for some XYZ role. Curious if you know anybody. See link below. We're offering $1,000. And now you're increasing your pool of applicants from years and years and years and years that you're staying in touch with, that either A, may become interested later, or just has a network and might not mind getting $1,000 to refer you to somebody. Active strategies matter.
I like that. And also if you maybe were choosing between one and like two and you went with one, having two still here, maybe in the future when you have an opening position, you're thinking of them because they already went through most of the process.
Yeah. Any recruiter will tell you it's called like warming their bench.
Yeah.
So you need to have a bench. And if you're just recruiting, you've hired your people, now you shut off the funnel and you're not thinking about it ever again, you're always going to hit that reset button. That's tough. Think about doing that in sales. Think about being like, we've got the work we need, Kate, we're not going to market anymore and we're going to go do the work. It's like
that doesn't happen.
It's too up and down, right? You need to keep consistent pipeline open at all times.
Okay, perfect. And so where do you see the future of recruitment going in trades? We talked about a little bit in robots, but specifically with recruitment.
Robots will take a little longer. The physical, manifestation of robots in the workforce will take a little longer, but it will come. I'm watching HireBus is a really good example. They've got a really neat, and I should give them a shout out if you guys want to check them out, but they've got a really neat way to know who your ideal candidate is for the role, go out and recruit for those people, and then have them take an aptitude test to help self-identify their fit, and then we'll help self-schedule them into your calendar. And AI is doing a lot of the back end to run the whole process because it's an expert at pattern recognition in a way that we as humans will never be. And so AI will be the thing that will ultimately start to connect us to our ideal applicants if we can take time to identify who those ideal people are and work with people who have software that works on this stuff. But I do think it's going to become and is becoming easier to automate the outreach process and getting them at least to a first meeting. Yeah.
But what do you say about it being sometimes a roadblock to good applicants because it might filter out certain things or it's not as, I guess, thorough as the human element?
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. I think that and again, I have not worked specifically with HireBus. I just know the owner really well, but I think that it is learning at such a pace that for that to be true, it is only true for a moment. It might be true for 6 months, maybe a year, but we are on a pace right now where that's our own human bias. And when you're doing outreach, trust me, I'm the guy who had 100 resumes a day coming in.
Yeah.
You already can't discern properly. Right. And you are already missing on certain opportunities, no matter how dialed you think you are. And so AI will learn those discrepancies and do a better job than you. And maybe they do today, maybe they don't, but they will soon.
Yeah. You also could put as an employee, you can put in your resume into the AI system and just say, is this AI optimized? Can you read this properly? Are my skills being showcased? So it's like, you can already see if it's already AI optimized or not.
For sure. All your skills being are recognized properly, which is important. But AI's job is to say, for this company, this is what they're looking for. Does that show elements of that in this resume? Yeah. Or in this aptitude test that we've had them take?
Yeah.
One of the cool things, this was years ago, but I thought was really smart. So at the company I worked with, we developed a custom aptitude test that was directly related to the traits that we were going to be interviewing on. So things like tenacity, attainment, fundamental introspection, personality traits. And it would take a test, have them take the test, and then they would tell you on a scale of 1 to 10 how well they scored on each attribute. But what was really smart was every single year that we had franchisees operate, we were able to feed data back into it and say, this is how those franchisees actually performed in their role a year later. And then it went and looked at their original way of answering their questions, and it adjusted what was important and how those questions were measured, and it got closer and closer and closer at how somebody takes this aptitude test, how good they actually are in their ability to handle stress or set goals and so on.
I like that because it does follow it to have actual data behind it. So it's not just, okay, this person got the job, but it's like, not only did they get the job, they're also succeeding, or maybe they didn't succeed. And this is how they kind of answer that. And so it makes more sense. And obviously AI is really quick on analyzing the data and putting it all together. So that's a good way to use that, especially with these kinds of tests to see.
And I will say this, I'm not like all about just like automation here. So like my role was to go and do my own interviews, do my own due diligence, and then see, is my opinion similar to how they scored or different? If it's different, you know what that's grounds for? That's grounds for more investigation. If it's the same, it's a more likelihood of a check mark that we've got it right.
Right.
So I'm not necessarily just following what it says. I'm just seeing, is my objective or subjective opinion close to what it thinks. And if it's the same, check off. If it's not, we need to go look into this more.
Yeah. And that's a good point, at adding in you checking it as well. So it's not just taking it as direct quotation from them being like, yeah, okay, I should hire this person or I shouldn't.
Totally. It's still a very human process. I just think that the sorting and organizing of getting the right people down that first part of the funnel, I think that is grounds for there's a huge innovation that's happening right now around that I think would help. So
okay, perfect. This was such a great conversation. I feel like time flew by. So I'm like, oh yeah, we have to wrap up now. But before we go, where can people find you? Where can people learn more, hear more from you?
Yeah, so we're a Breakthrough Academy. We've been around for 10 years in the space, and lots of people have seen us. We've got our podcast called Contractor Evolution. We've got our website if you want to read about the programs and things we offer to help contractors, but it's btacademy.com, B as in Bravo, T as in Tango, academy.com. And we look to work with owners. Usually 1 to 10 million is kind of like our sweet spot with them. And they're all trying to figure out operationally, how do I build my budgets properly and build KPIs for my team and get job descriptions in place and these standard operating procedures and all the back end things that help assist a business system grow, but for contracting. So for those who are interested in that, you can check us out.
Go check them out for real, guys. They have great content. You guys are always killing it on social media, webinars. You provide a lot of value for people, which I think is really important. Not just people who are in your program, but just in general. Your podcast is great. So keep doing what you guys are doing. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for your questions.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Built by Me podcast. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow us on social media at Built by Me podcast. If there's something specific you want us to chat about, please let us know in the comments down below. And until next time, keep building.